What exactly, in your mind, is the most important factor that the Fed is debating or deliberating about right now as it looks towards what is a presumptive 25 basis point rate cut?
So what's happening now is something that is always very comfortable for a central bank, which is where you have a stagflation type phenomena where inflation is high, rising because of a supply shock, in this case, the tariffs. But on the other hand, that supply shock also can actually weaken the economy. And so we're seeing exactly this scenario start to play out with inflation well above the Fed's target, particularly on the core level, which is more important for telling you what may happen in the future. That we're in a situation where the employment numbers are starting to look much weaker than they were before. And so this is a case where there's always a quandary, because if you're in a situation where there's a negative demand shock, and in that case, you're going to have both inflation and the economy weaken, then it's easy. You just lower rates. It's much tougher in this kind of environment. Normally, what a central bank should do is to recognize if the supply shock is temporary, in the sense of temporary to inflation, that's just a one-time shock, and that's what a tariff will do, then in fact they should look through the fact that inflation will be temporarily higher, but eventually come back down again. And it makes the case much more stronger for them to actually ease. The problem here is that the Fed's very worried about inflation expectations, and this is particularly very, very key in terms of the attacks that we've seen on the Fed, the Lisa Cook situation, the fact that they've appointed somebody, which is unprecedented, that actually still is keeping a job in the White House, which is really quite extraordinary, indicating that they'll be beholden to Donald Trump, who's asking for very, very dramatic cuts. So in this kind of situation, the Fed is very concerned that inflation expectations may not stay stable in this kind of environment. And that may be a key reason why they may be much more reluctant to cut rates faster than they otherwise would. And I think that's the problem they're facing. Yes, there's a situation where it looks like the economy is weakening. The inflation rate, if in fact inflation expectations don't rise, that's a situation where it will be temporary rise in inflation. Then, in fact, they would cut more deeply. But this is a tough situation for them.